I'm not unused to padded rooms.
We just recently did a Abdullah face reveal.
You did? Oh, wow. And what a face it is. We used to charge 100 rupees a ticket. I think even a joint was more expensive. I don't think people are wasting their joints.
Professional pant shitter.
Just hire Abdullah. I heard Isakdar needs you, right?
Abdullah ko yahan hai 90 minutes ho gaye.
The dry impact wears off.
Hello, assalamu alaikum. Welcome to another episode of the Pakistan Experience. And since मेरी community, मेरी बिरादरी के लोग आए हुए हैं आज, we've already started discussing stand-up comedy, stand-up comedian, radio show host, all-round fun guy, your friendly neighborhood stand-up comedian, Mr. Saad Haroon. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you, Shahzad. It's good to be here. I like your studio. I like your setup. Very professional.
Saad is looking for jokes. He's like, What can I make fun of?
Isn't that what a comedian always does, right? They're like, okay, fine, where's the material?
So, yeah, आपकी youthful energy राज क्या है?
Youthful energy, it comes mostly from the coffee. That's where it comes from. So all the youth is from the coffee, and then the bitterness afterwards, that's the old age.
That's also from the coffee.
That's also exactly from the after effects.
The hangover of coffee. आपको होता है because like, I know as a stand-up comedian, I know every single stand-up comedian goes through that. But somehow I just see you as this happy, positive ball of energy. Maybe I haven't seen you at home. That's where
you haven't seen you. Yeah, everyone sees the kind of on-stage Saad, and they don't see the rest of it. They don't see the kind of the brutal sort of soul-crushing kind of experience that is stand-up comedy. So that's you want people on stage to see what they want. You want them to have fun. But more and more I do talk about that on stage, especially in this last show. I talked about kind of the trials and tribulations of just basic things like, the kind of depression you might go through when you're doing stand-up comedy, the kind of craziness that people expect from you when you're a stand-up comedian. So yeah.
Has that just happened as you've developed your voice, or did you consciously think about that? Because I haven't seen the new show and I'm looking forward to whenever the next one is in Karachi. Lekin your old material was all a little detached from you. It's like Seinfeld. You're observing things and making fun of that as opposed to Saad being at the center of it.
Well, yes, I think that I went through different phases of it. And I think that kind of the more specials I've done, like by the time I reached this fifth or sixth special that I did, it was getting more and more personal. But in the beginning, I was just enjoying doing the detached comedy. I was enjoying just making people laugh. And also stand-up comedy was so new here, that just kind of playing around with the art form. So I was doing musical comedy and one-liners and political. People love political comedy. So doing that was always fun. The problem with doing political comedy in Pakistan is that you throw your jokes away every 2 weeks because the politics changes and you got to do something new. So
that's so interesting. I'm just doing this show with Dr. Yunus Bhatt. हम सब उम्मीद से हैं जिन्होंने लिखा था, and he reads these things that he's written, character sketches खा के कहते हैं वो उनको, and he's like, ये मैंने 30 साल पहले लिखा था, and they're relevant.
And he just redoes the names.
No, it's the same name, it's the same person, and it's the same thing that they were doing 30 years ago.
Okay. Oh wow. It's my bad. I was writing Musharraf jokes, so those are all done with. He's never coming back.
The more things change, the more they stay the same.
The more they stay the same. But yeah.
So that detachment. And since आपने बात की, आप political comedy कर रहे थे, musical comedy कर रहे थे, since it was the pre-cancel culture era and you never face the brunt of it, can you sing Burqa Woman for us so that people can cancel you?
Oh yeah, they can. I mean, they can probably still find it online and cancel. They did cancel. I got cancelled by a lot of different types of people.
That's the real cancellation.
Yeah, that was
your
real
life cancellation.
Yeah, that was real cancellation where I was like, I'm just not going to perform for a few months and I'm just going to lay low. And it was true to cancel culture where it just kind of went away at the end of the day. And I was like, okay, I can continue doing it. And they found something else to be angry and upset upset about.
So was it just random people or was it the Taliban?
Well, no, I mean, no, I think that
The
people...
original, not
No,
like
no,
this,
you know...
ice cream shops hote hain, original, but was it the original Taliban?
No, to be, you know... I think everyone likes to, you know, when the Burqa Woman song came out and it was just a parody of something. And, you know, because I was talking about something new and I was talking about it in a new context, which is comedy, it kind of became more than it was. It was supposed to be a fun, interesting, fun song. It was social commentary. And then, you know, as it grew, as the popularity of it grew, obviously there are going to be people who like it and people who don't like it. So it was such a random spectrum where people who are like the burqa hating community of the world came together to kind of be like rally around this song because, you know, it's because it makes fun of this culture and which is bad and wrong and covers women. And then the other side of the argument, then there was the kind of religious side of the argument, which was like, oh my God, look at this man who's making, you know, look at this man who's making fun of these burqas and, you know, you got to cancel him. So there was both sides of the spectrum trying to...
You were celebrating burqas.
I was celebrating it. Yeah, you know, to be honest,
good-looking woman, burqa woman.
Well, exactly. So I was I was kind of, you know, kind of attaching the idea of, you know, the burqa and a woman are the same person. You know, it's still a person under there. It's still somebody that, you know, you can look at as a human being rather than just somebody in a burqa. So to hopefully start that conversation, but then obviously people took it to mean 100 different things, which is great, which is good. You know, if you didn't like the song, good. If you did like the song, good. If you didn't understand it, that's fine. But it was a fun conversation to have. And then everyone just moved on.
Since you're the old stalwart of stand-up comedy, I think you hold a lot more weight when you say it. I feel like kids these days think a stand-up comedian is talking to them, and maybe it is the lot more personal style of stand-up comedy. But at the end of the day, they're still doing jokes, and somehow I feel like that nuance is lost on people. So if a stand-up comedian says something, somebody will go on Twitter and write it out and say, I can't believe he said that and he meant it. No, we did not.
Yeah, yes. You know, so I think that to be honest, I think that there's always been a burden to doing stand-up comedy, and that's good. And even back in the day, even, you know, 20 years ago,
1970s when
I was born.
You were famous.
Back in 1602, when I was writing my jokes on parchment with my quills.
It's an interesting tidbit of history when we lost Dhaka, the day we lost Dhaka, Saad had a show in his
No, I think that even back then I was even thinking about this the other day, that there's a lot of stuff that we got away with and a lot of stuff that I didn't get away with at all. And people did call me out right there and then, and things changed and jokes changed. And there's still, even today, there's jokes I did in improv shows that I regret doing. And I was like, oh, I wish I hadn't done that in the moment. So it's also kind of about your ethos about it. It's also about kind of where you were going with the joke, what happened with it. Every comedian will make a mistake and will do a bad joke now and again, you know, and be like, okay, I didn't mean to do that joke, or I could have changed that joke or something like that. But if you're doing it, you know, if you're doing it in a pattern in which, you know, this is a belief system of yours, then obviously there is something wrong, and people who believe differently will come out and say, okay, I don't like that. I'm not, you know, you are cancelable, I guess.
I mean, I think it's the same thing as films, right? If it's intentionally a propaganda film that's been made with the intention of having a message, whereas good films don't have messages, you see through that. But let's say somebody like Bill Burr, who may say a lot of problematic things, but I think he's always approaching it from the idea of this is a satirized version of this angry white guy shouting at the skies.
You're absolutely right. You know, it's a character that he does, and he does have a conversation about these things, and he speaks with a certain voice that a lot of people have, and a lot of people agree with, you know, and what you're doing is just basically just talking about these things, and you're making fun of them. So whenever you make fun of anything, you're going to cross the line, and living in a society like Pakistan, you're going to cross a lot of those lines doing your stand-up comedy. So in the beginning, when I started, I think maybe a reason why it was so detached was I was just like, is this working? Like, is the comedy working? Are they laughing? It had to be a detached vehicle to be like, oh, does the gari run? Is it even going? And then it got more and more personal, to I think this last show, which was probably the most personal work I've done so far.
So that thing that you're talking about, that's a starting point, and that's something that I also started from. And the problem is, when we talk about comedians saying problematic things, we're not conscious of the fact that that's our society speaking right back to you. So if all of us grow on a healthy dose of jokes about people's ethnicities, people's races, or people's skin color, or the way they look, obviously when somebody thinks, oh, what's funny, that's what they will resonate towards. So if we don't give them that license of making those mistakes and then improving their sets as well, you're never going to produce comedians.
It's true. I think that, each generation of whatever you do has to get better and better, and it can make fewer and fewer mistakes. That'll be for runners or tennis players or what have you. And it's the same for comedians where, we might have been able to get away with a few mistakes having started stand-up comedy earlier. But, when these newer people come to the stage, they're just gonna, because of the amount of knowledge out there, the amount of stand-up out there. There's YouTube now. There was no YouTube back then. You can watch like 100 clips of 100 different types of stand-up comedians doing 100 different things in 100 different ways of dress, and you can do that. So, they do have to up their game. It's just one of those things. And even now, when I go on stage, I know that this, the comedy I do now has to be exponentially better than the comedy I did when I was starting out. Like, I just cannot get away with some of those jokes that I did back in the day because I was starting out and it was great and it was fun and it was happy and it was good and nobody else was doing stand-up comedy and I got away with a lot of those jokes. But now there's also pressure on me and I feel it to be like, okay, the jokes have to be better, they have to be smarter, they have to be interesting, and people will call you out. So you're doing every comedy show you're writing is like a thesis paper. It is, and you're like, okay, and wait a second, I'm going to research that, and wait, I'm going to read a little bit more about that. So you're writing one joke and then you end up going in this whirlpool of the internet where you're like, oh my God. So I was, so I have this joke about like Xanax, and so I was like, oh my God, let me research Xanax. What does it do? Oh, there's a Netflix documentary, let me watch that. So honestly, by the time of it, you're like, oh my God, I have one joke, I'm exhausted.
That's a great way to justify your procrastination.
Yeah, it is absolutely. We do that, but at least in that procrastination used to end up with more jokes. Now it's like one joke.
Saad, why are you watching 6 documentaries? It's work.
It is.
Bring more popcorn.
Absolutely.
उसमें जो आप thesis की बात कर रहे हैं, I agree with you.
Yeah.
But it's also that day one of college is your thesis defense. And the thing that you're talking about, on the flip side, due to these open mics now happening regularly, they still get a lot more leeway because the audience also understands what they're trying to do, unless they put up their first performance on YouTube, which nobody ever should.
Never do that. Because
then the world will attack you. I think the problem that I faced, and I'd love your take on how it was for you, is the day one you put up a show, it's like Shahzad Ghaya's 1 hour special. How else do I put up a show? There's not a place I can go and do 5 minutes.
Yeah, there wasn't.
So my first ideas or my first articulation of the jokes is what audience hears. Bill Burr does this joke in his latest special where it's like, people say you just never hurt women. Never. Terrible place to start off.
Yeah.
But then he goes into it and it's clearly that he's joking, and there's Ricky Gervais says there's great things, that there's a difference between the subject of the joke and the target of the joke. Sometimes when you're saying something satirically, it's not like you're mocking that, you're not belittling that. But if we don't even give people that leeway of this is the first articulation of your thought, so it's the dumbest possible thing to say, but research and form that thesis.
Yeah, that's true. So you just got to put in the work. So if a regular stand-up comedian anywhere else in the world is writing 5 minutes, then trying it out at an open mic and then going back and doing it again, and they get to do this multiple times, and we don't have that luxury. Literally, I write a joke and then I rewrite the joke, then I rewrite it, then I rewrite it, and so my process of putting together and constructing that joke might be much longer than their writing process, but my performance process is shrunk into, okay, fine, I have to make a living as a stand-up comedian in Pakistan. I can't perform this joke 40 times and then expect somebody to pay for it. So I have to have an hour-long show ready of jokes nobody's heard before. So that's what I end up doing, and that's what I've done now 6 times, so 7 times, I don't even know, but it just, so that's what I end up doing. I end up just going there and doing that thing and putting in the work, putting in the work before I go on stage. And I mean, honestly, different creatures evolve in different parts of the world in different ways. And we've evolved as this weird stand-up comedy beast that does it this way. But hopefully this new generation that's coming up right now, and they're doing open mics and they're trying different things and they're doing it that way. But their model is also more internet oriented. When I started out, it was all about selling tickets. Now it's about, okay, fine, how many of these videos can I put out? Because I'm going to monetize on YouTube. I'm going to monetize on Instagram. I'm going to get more work from here. So their whole model has changed.
It's because I think a lot of them are doing stand-up comedy to get into acting, to get into films. And there's a bunch of that. Whereas I think we were doing stand-up comedy to get into stand-up because nobody was coming to look at stand-up comedians to cast them elsewhere.
I mean, also, yeah, you're right. Like, this is like an art form, I mean, anyone watching this thing will be like, oh my God, I'm going to listen to 2 stand-up comedians talk about comedy.
What a funny podcast.
And they're like,
I am Pagliacci.
Yeah, exactly. They're all going to be like, why is this so goddamn serious? But, what people need to understand, hopefully what your podcast audience will understand, is that this is an art form. I remember that I remember that I was a few years into doing stand-up comedy, I was getting some notoriety, and somebody came up to me and they were like, oh, you're doing stand-up, but how much do you make? And I was like, I just don't do it for the money. It's very hard to explain to people.
Was it a family member?
No, it wasn't a family member. They had
it sounds like a Mehman.
I'm a Diliwala, by the way. I'm not a Mehman. So, I mean, man, at least let me finish my joke,
okay,
man.
Go for it. Go for it.
This is 2 stand-up comedians doing a podcast. This is the problem. The other one's like, I'm going to get to the punchline before you are.
This is why you don't heckle.
This is why you don't heckle. Yeah, it's true. But anyway, I forget now. I forget the punchline. Go ahead.
No, Saad.
Go forward.
We want the punchline.
it's gone to somewhere. It'll come up in the podcast later. This is how you know that Saad's
a smart stand-up comedian. He realizes that he's lost the setup, so he's like, I'm not going to give away the punchline, even though he remembers it.
No, it's more of that the moment goes away. There's a lot of times where that moment just flies away, and that I could tell that, and that's why stand-up comedy is such an art, right? Because you're doing it just to make sure that you get that right punchline and you capture that perfect moment. It's beautiful when it happens.
So the rewriting process, now Saad's like, it would have been beautiful, it would have been majestic. Now you've lost it. Yeah. Watch the Saad Haroon podcast for this joke.
Beautiful, majestic. Oh my God, I need to watch 5 seasons of Project Runway before I finish this joke. It has to be beautiful.
So the rewriting process, you're doing that for an audience of 1, or are you being that irritating friend where you're slipping them into casual conversation to try out material?
Oh no. The rewriting process is literally, if anybody actually saw it, they would think you're insane. And maybe all comedians are insane, but it's literally you telling yourself the joke sometimes, and your lips are moving. You're like, and then you're like, okay. And you can picture the audience laughing at this, and then you can picture them not laughing. You're like, that's not funny. And then the shame you feel from them not laughing. This is all happening in your head. And then you start writing the joke again with another punchline. And then you try it again. You're like, oh, this is funny. And then you wake up the next morning and you try it again in your head, and it's not working the next morning, and you're rewriting it. So basically, it's just a constant process of just milking your brain for every ounce.
I mean, I'm sure that's quite difficult to do because you're also in a straitjacket when you're doing this.
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah. And
you have been institutionalized.
Yeah.
The first day people saw you doing this.
I'm not unused to padded rooms. I'm very comfortable here in this nice padding. It works perfectly.
Now
for
you
me.
know what room we've repurposed into the podcast studio. They built it for me, and look what I've done with it, Mom.
Dr. Ali, is that you? Are you here to monitor the podcast as well?
What podcast? This is like Shutter Island. They make me... These cameras are props. It goes nowhere. They do this to make me think that I have friends.
This is basically a microcosm of my career. Like the cameras are on, no one's watching. Wonderful. Thank you for making me feel so welcome, Shahzad.
Welcome to the Truman Podcast. So I'm sure now that you've done 6 specials, you have an idea what the audience wants. But how do you do that on your first show?
How do I do it? I mean, I think that
just imagine what they would have liked.
Yeah, this weird system that I've developed, which because there are no other comedians around to talk to or audiences to perform on. So you were like, okay, fine, and and honestly, it's crazy, but it is wonderful because you understand that, okay, fine, I have to rely on just myself to figure out what's funny. And that's it. I'm there. I have to do it myself. There's no other way out of this conundrum but to do this myself. And then you just do it because there was no other option.
And it was all intuition.
It was all intuition. I mean, to begin with, it was all intuition. But like I said, some of those jokes that I told on that first show, I now when I go back, I was like, oh, this could have been so much better. You learn as you go along. But some of those jokes for that first show, I would, if I was in the audience, I would be like, get that guy off stage.
But that's what I'm saying. I mean, like, you can rewrite 1,000,000 times, but till you don't go in front of an audience. And the problem is, like, I've also done tours. Sometimes when you're doing the last show and you say something, you're like,
yes,
that's the joke.
That's the joke. Yeah, you
but
can go through 100. No, yeah, that's it. The tour's over, and you can do it for the next tour or whatever. But you're right. Sometimes that and yes, a lot of my jokes just like morph when I'm doing it. I think, and I also overwrite. So if I have to do an hour-long show, it's basically hours and hours condensed down to an hour and a half. And then during that tour, sometimes I'll lose 20 minutes of those jokes. They're good jokes, but I'm like, if I lost these, I'll do an hour of like laugh, 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 laugh. And that feeling where it's just kind of this, like the wave picks you up and you go with it and then you're done with the show.
That's what I feel as well. Sometimes maybe I also need to keep my ego in check but when you're writing at 5 a.m., you're like, this is the funniest shit I've ever written in my life. This is insane.
I know when you do that. Yeah. When you do that joke and you make yourself laugh,
hysterically.
There's no better feeling on the planet. And then the excruciating waiting 6 months to get it on stage. You're like, this joke, like you keep it and you're like, it needs to hatch. You're like, stay in the egg, and then but then you get to hatch all your eggs at the same time.
Sometimes there's also that excruciating pain where you wake up and you're like, I really did a great job writing yesterday, and then you open the notepad and it's like,
it's a bad joke.
Wow, did Imran Khan cross the road? And you're like, why did I think this was funny at 5 a.m.?
You're right. This is true. There are a lot of, I have notebooks full of those jokes which were like, oh, this is the best joke ever. And I tell people, and I mean, I still think some of the jokes that I write, I love those jokes, and I tell people and they're just like, we don't get it. We just don't get it. And you're like, okay, fine. Got to dial, you got to pull your mind just back in just a little bit for the special. But you can always laugh at your own jokes.
Yeah, but for like the Billboard example that I gave you, I think it's a lot more difficult to do it with difficult topics, right? Like some things that would intrinsically make audiences uncomfortable, and then to go there and bring them back. I try doing that a lot, but you inevitably fail most of the times because you don't get the license to do that joke 7 times, 8 times. If you've done it 8 times, you've alienated your entire audience in the city. You're done.
I gotta hear whatever joke is in your mind right now. I've got to hear this joke because you do go there, and there are ways that you can go there, and it depends on your audience. Because going there for a Pakistani audience versus going there for an audience somewhere else is a very different process. Where some audiences you can go anywhere and they won't mind, but it has to be funny. And Pakistani audiences, you literally got to be like, okay, this is the boundary. It's been pushed this far. Can I push it a bit further? Can I push it a bit further, or do I just want to jump to the other side of the boundary and not give a fuck what these people think?
But you do. I mean, at the end of the day, you're performing. You do give a fuck, right? So instance, I've tried a few jokes about me hating babies, which I don't particularly like babies.
Yeah.
And you just lose the audience.
Well, I mean,
you just lose the audience.
The thing is, but I salute you, sir. It's a tough joke,
I know there is humor there. I just need to get it out of my system a few more times to just find that gold.
Well, I would say it's in the rewrite, because then the thing is that you can get it out of your system a few times, but I mean, if the joke is there, then it's in the rewrite, because it's, of course, you've picked a very difficult joke to write about, but I love those difficult jokes.
That's what I'm saying.
I love them.
But I like, yes, maybe it obviously is in the rewrite.
Yeah.
But I can't, I mean, I try as much as I can in the rewrite, but I need to do it in front of an audience because I also feel like when you're telling it in front of the audience, you're also discovering it. You're also finding new ways to articulate it in front of the audience, and you're essentially rewriting on stage.
But very few, I think.
Really?
Yeah, very few. I think well, for me, I guess I developed it very differently just because of circumstance. But I think that you can find very few kind of avenues within that kind of like small time frame that you're on stage, and to be honest, I've done those jokes, and I did some in the last tour which got like, it really kind of, it really made people uncomfortable. It was wonderful. It was just wonderful, and some people laughed and everything like that, but it was a joke that I had to tell, It was one of those things where there was too much truth in it for me to not say it, so I did it, and it was fun and everything like that, but I lost the audience a few times, and I tried to tweak it on stage, and I realized that by the end of the tour, I took out that one part of the joke which was just too uncomfortable because it flowed better. But I was like, it's so much fun to do that one little joke. But it was just such a jhatka for them, because they were like, it's kind of like I needed an opening act just to get past that one joke. Be like, okay, bring another comedian on stage just for 10 minutes so we can get past this awkward moment. Then I'll take over.
Can you redo the warm up?
Yeah, can you redo the warm up, and then I'll come back and I'll do the rest of this joke.
Ye hota hai. A few nights ago, I came up with this line which is like deeply sad. And I've written it, and I'm like, there will be a joke around it.
Yeah.
And it's deeply sad. But I know that I'll write a bit around it.
Well, good. I mean, I do a lot of the dark, sad humor. Yeah. How can you not do dark, sad humor if you grow up in Karachi, for God's sakes, I have like 4 or 5 different stories, and it's okay doing them here because people relate. They're like, oh my God, I remember that time. And doing those ones abroad, they're like, they look at you like they're watching like a documentary. They're like, oh my God, can we laugh at this? It's because, and I'm like, no, please, just, laugh. I mean, you've done everything else with us, at least laugh with us, but,
You have this old joke, which is like the G word mobile nikal joke.
Oh, yes.
That's
yeah, I do that.
Trademark Saad Haroon jokes.
Oh, yeah. I haven't done that joke in a long time. I should I should just do that joke. Can you even swear on the podcast?
Yeah,
I don't even know if you could.
Of course.
Oh, thank God. You didn't tell me this stuff. We just started, we were conducting this like gentlemen. What the fuck are you doing?
No, Saad,
Jesus Christ, man. You should have at least told me.
No, I mean, everything you called me before we started recording is on the record.
Okay.
Oh.
Okay, that's good. So all of that, the nudity is all on tape then.
100%.
Okay, great. I'm lucky, I mean, because this bod is not coming back.
I'm quite impressed.
I need to document it.
I'm very impressed. Saad has taken George Carlin's work forward, and he's written 7 dirty body parts.
Oh, 7 body parts.
That's how we started.
No,
I
would not. I would not even begin to compare myself to George Carlin.
But you're doing it under a pseudonym, right? George Carlin is the name you've chosen.
Oh, no. It's a Charlie Garland. That was it. No, it's not. Why are you going on this random tangent?
Go.
You think
Swear.
people are gonna? Are we gonna edit this out? Hey, editor, what's your editor's name? Huh?
This is what happens when you become as famous as Saad. You're like, hey, boy, what's your name?
No. I mean,
give me a coffee.
Listen, at least I'm pointing him out in the podcast
because that's what people want. You.
Yeah, I know. Abdullah. People need to know Abdullah was here doing his job.
We just recently did a Abdullah face reveal.
You did? Oh wow! And what a face it is.
आपने swear क्या करना था कर ले.
Sorry, I forgot. I lost it again. I lost my train of thought.
But now you know you can swear openly.
Okay, fine, good.
Do anything and say anything.
No. I mean, I'll swear I'll do it. I mean, I was saving up from the last time. I mean, we were supposed to do this podcast. What? How many days ago? 3 days ago? 2 days ago? And then the lights for the country went.
Imagine.
Yeah, the lights for the country went. And I guess I can't believe it. I guess sometimes the Pakistan experience is not to have one.
Yeah, मुझे अभी एक बहुत ही बड़ा brand है telecom का.
Yeah.
I was talking
What's
to them.
What's the name?
Telnor.
You were hiding. You did such a bad
You thought
job.
you can put me on the spot.
You did such a bad job hiding
You can
it.
put
You're like,
me
there's a big
on the
telecom.
spot.
I'm like, who is it? You're like, Telenor. You didn't even flinch once. You know?
You think I keep secrets? So her name was Amna. We were in 7th grade.
7th grade.
Sorry, Amna from 7th grade.
She now works for Telenor. So it all worked out.
It all comes back. उनको मुझे proposal भेजना था.
Proposal? Like congratulations.
Yes. And they're like, dude, it's been 2 days, and I'm like, 2 दिन बिजली नहीं थी. Please, मैं भेज दूँगा. Like literally, these are the things we have to tell people.
Yeah, and you send them the proposals, and nothing's gonna happen. This is also the life of a comedian. You know, they're like, oh, we want comedy. Send us a proposal, and then just they look at it. They're like, okay, fine.
I mean, I always get a call back, so I don't know much.
Oh, really? No wonder you're so rich. Like this place, I can see the amount of money you spend. So that's who they've been calling back this whole time.
Every time you send a proposal, they're like, the idea is great. Can you replace Saad? I'm like,
listen,
yes,
I'm just gonna put your phone number on my proposal from now on. I'll be like, listen, let's cut to the chase. And here's a proposal. Just call Shahzad back.
We're cribbing about things. Did YouTube call you on their latest event?
No.
You hosted the last one.
Well, it's honestly, it's okay. I do not do any social media.
I'm not talking about yourself. I'm talking. They invited me the last time when they were
didn't invite you?
They did invite me.
I can't believe it.
Why
didn't they invite you?
No idea. Even though जब वो launch कर रहे थे.
How many subscribers? You see, this is it. Your subscribers are Pakistani, aren't they? I can't believe it.
मैंने देखा event and I was like,
if you had white subscribers,
it's racism.
It is. It's blatant. Social media. Come up with the term. You're probably good at this. What is social media racism called?
Just racism.
Okay,
it doesn't change when it's on social media.
That is very good.
It's only racism when it comes from the region of France called Raison.
Oh.
Otherwise, it's just plain hate.
Ah, okay, fine. Okay. Yeah. But you can bottle that hate. It's much more expensive.
That's how I became a stand-up comedian.
There you go.
I opened those bottles and it was for the audience to see. Aapka ek show...
I love that transition because that goes going nowhere. You're like, Aapka ek show. I love that.
Because it's connected because we're talking about the Bijli.
Yes.
I remember you were doing the show at PACC and then a bomb blast happened and then you also made a documentary out of it.
I did, yeah.
Where you're just like, we were supposed to do this show and now there's a bomb blast. Yeah. So we're making this video instead.
It's true, yeah. So basically, we were doing it, the bomb blast happened and that's one of, I don't get to do this joke enough, but in other countries, you have to market a show. In Pakistan, you have to unmarket a show sometimes, And you're not saying come, you're like, don't come anymore. Get out, go away, don't come, don't you dare come here. So, so that day, like you have to market, we sold the whole show and then unsold it. I literally spent all day unmarketing it at the end of the day, hoping that nobody came. Yeah. And then there was a bomb blast and yeah.
It's also interesting that...
But I love my bomb blast jokes. They're the most fun. jokes to do. You know, the bomb blast jokes are all because there's nothing more scary than a bomb, you know, going off. And there's so many times a bomb has gone off and I've been in the vicinity. Thank God, not the immediate vicinity. But then, like once I was at the gym,
you always make sure you get away.
I always make sure I get a joke, not I get. I don't care about getting away. I don't think there's any escaping that. Once
the insinuation was that you're planting them.
The insinuation is I'm planting. No, they wouldn't hire a comedian to do that. We get no work. Not even
Somebody has this joke that was it yours that the Taliban would ever hire a stand-up comedian because they'll wake up at like 6 p.m. and they'll be like, "Nahi, main nahi karna."
No, that's not my joke.
Somebody has this bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
That's not my joke. Purana bit hai.
Yeah.
Kisi ka.
Yeah, you're right. And you know, the bomb jokes are good, but I mean, when you grow up in a dangerous place where you hear bomb, you know, you can take it with a, you know. I
think it also goes back to what we were talking about, right? As a comedian, that's how your mind works. I mean, I'm only going to eat my vegetables if I get to eat the mashed potatoes. Like, reality only becomes palatable when it's viewed through the lens of comedy. Otherwise, you'll just not get out of bed because the reality is that grim. And now we see all comedy as a negative thing almost. Like, jab us time bhi bomb phat rahe the, Ali Azmat had the song called Bomb Phata. And people would joke about it in Karachi because how else do you live? But I think if somebody does a bomb blast joke on Twitter, they'll be cancelled immediately because they'll make it seem like you're belittling the issue.
Could be. But, you know, I mean, I wouldn't put a joke on Twitter. I mean, I tell people just don't put any more jokes on Twitter or anything for free anyway, but nobody listens to me. But, you know, I mean, we live in an era where we write these interesting jokes in certain contexts and everything like that, and people just end up kind of putting them out everywhere, you know. And
even if you don't, somebody's going to come to your show.
Yeah.
And put it out there, right?
Yeah, a lot of times that happens as well. It's happened that people have just taken jokes and everything. It's frustrating what you do. You know, you can't really, I mean, unless you kind of record it and put it out there first. And even then, you know, they might take it still.
Interestingly, abhi somebody said ke, I went to this show of Shahzad's and he did this joke about the Master Multiform. And ये कुछ 2 साल पुराना जोक है. And somebody replied, bro, मैं 6 साल से तो मैं शहजाद को सुन रहा हूँ ये जोक. People also don't understand that, you know, comedians repeat jokes. It's also that, you know, a lot of times that you can do multiple jokes. I mean, in other places you can have 100, 200, 500, 1,000 shows where you'll never see the same audience member again because you're traveling around. So you can do the same jokes. Over here, we have a small audience of people who are now kind of coming into it. And now I sort of, you know, even back when I started doing improv, I thought, okay, more people will start doing it back then. But it took decades until now you're kind of seeing. And COVID took away a lot of the steam. God damn COVID, man. Oh, the death of comedy. That was bad. The death of live performances.
Yeah, death of live performances, and it's still hard now. It's still more difficult now to do shows than it was before.
100%.
Much more difficult.
Because वो चीज़ें चली गई ना. अब जो venues थे who were also getting a sustainable revenue stream के हर हफ्ते shows होने, venues बंद हो गए. अब फिर से कौन invest करे, फिर से कौन खोले, or the companies that were running.
No, but people don't want to come. You know, people have changed their mindset. They watch a lot of it online. You know, if they used to go to the cinema once every month, now they'll go once every 4 or 5 months. Like, lifestyle patterns have just changed.
But I mean, if it's a good, like Maula Jat Aayi,
that's it. I mean,
patterns don't matter, right, for people.
No, that's just the one movie. I mean, and I think that other good movies might have come in the meanwhile, even English ones or whatever, but people have just don't go to the cinema anymore. Not just here, even, you know, even when I travel and I go to a cinema, their cinemas are much more empty than they used to be. Things have just changed.
Live performances, it was terrible.
Yeah, live performances, I'm still, you know, for somebody who was and making his living doing live performances, it was probably the one biggest change event ever.
Yeah, it's necessity is the mother of invention. Akbar pivoted to making those YouTube videos.
Yes.
And now he's a national sensation.
Yeah. So Akbar was amazing. He did well. He's pivoted those videos. He did amazingly well. I wish that I'd found that format that I would have loved doing or something like that. I didn't. And, you know, so at the end of it, I'm just a stand-up comedian. That's what I love to do. It's hard to pivot away too.
make it sound so much sadder than it is.
Yeah.
At the end of the day.
No, it's kind of, yeah, it is a compulsion, you know?
I was in World War II. Nazis were on me.
The Nazis took my mic. The
Auschwitz open mic.
They tied me up with the mic cord. No, it's crazy doing it. Yeah, you're right. But whenever two comedians talk about stand-up comedy, it's very serious. You know, it's not our fault too. Abdullah does give out a weird vibe, you know, so it is a little bit his fault.
I have no idea why he follows this no pants policy. It makes zero sense.
Yeah.
I mean, the room's cold, it's winters. Kya masla hai pant pehnne mein yaar?
Yeah. This is not the nipple experience, okay? It's the Pakistan experience. Please.
So before we started recording, I was like, Saad, what's your kink? But now we know.
Cold rooms,
the nipple experience.
The nipple experience.
You also had a nipple joke in your stand-up.
About
the American flag.
Oh, yes. Yeah. I do have that joke.
Clearly there's something there.
Well, clearly there is for a lot of us.
So this was your first therapy session, and the first one's free.
This was amazing. Thank you so much. You know, I get coffee. We do a little bit of talk. So what is your audience like? Who listens to this kind of podcast?
So मैं यही सोच रहा था जब पहली stand-up comedy पे हमने podcast की was Akbar. And Akbar and I had this really sad, somber conversation about stand-up comedy. It was before Ranty Rona was a hit. And Akbar and I ended with like कोई नहीं सुनेगा ये कोई नहीं सुनेगा वो जो 4 open mic पे stand-up comedians करते हैं वो सुनेंगे.
Yeah.
And so many people heard it.
Yeah.
So many people heard it before like the Pakistan experience was big or Akbar was big. So वही है कि मुझे भी नहीं पता कि कौन लोग हैं कहाँ सुन रहे हैं. Sami Shah came on the podcast.
Oh, he did?
Yes. And then Sami...
Wait, before he left?
No, Zoom.
Oh, you did a Zoom call
during
with
COVID.
him.
And then he messaged me a day later. He said, I think a couple of days after the podcast came out, he's like, I went to do a show. And the guy who works the door at the club is Pakistani. And he's like, oh, I just heard your podcast. And he's like, what?
That's amazing.
What? In like Melbourne or Sydney?
Yeah, Sami, also one of the, the old guard, if there ever was one, of stand-up comedy.
Sami would have been cancelled in like 3 seconds.
Sami had to, Sami doesn't come back himself now. Yeah. Sami was like, I'm going to stay right here.
He, I think, did the Carlin thing. I think one of his shows I went and he just went like, asshole, cocksucker, motherfucker, now that we have that out of the way.
Okay, no, I didn't see. I mean, I saw a lot of his shows,
like
but it's been a while,
I thought Sami was phenomenal.
Yeah. Well, he still is. He's just not here. You're like, I think Sami was in Australia. I think Sami's phenomenal.
I think he's really lost his touch down.
He still doesn't have an Australian accent. It's really disappointing.
The old stuff. वो trauma नहीं है ना. I mean, like अच्छी जिंदगी है, हवा अच्छी है, मजा नहीं आ रहा. जब बाहर बॉम्ब फट रहा है और that's where the great real Sami Shah came.
Out of that trauma.
That tragedy में comedy है.
Yeah, no, I think that I mean a lot of the comedy he did was fun and interesting, and he really liked to dig deep too, so that's good.
That's what I like. The thing that we're talking about, I still want the audience back after making uncomfortable. Sometimes I felt like Sami didn't mind that pocket at all. Like he'll do a 10-minute bit and like he'd go there. I love him for that. Yeah,
I think no, I think that it was a mixture. I think that a lot of his stuff was still very relatable, and I saw the audiences, they enjoyed it, they found it fun. But, in those times, I think that we could also just push so far and you're right, nobody would cancel you. You could still do like mounds of material and just get away with. Plus, there was no cell phones, nobody recording, nobody going. There was no YouTube. There was nobody going back and writing things. What used to go viral back then were SMS messages. SMS messages would go viral. And you're like, oh my God, did you get that SMS message, text message? There was no other idea of virality back then.
I forgot क्या हुआ था, but I think पहली चीज़ जो viral गई थी was a Facebook post which got forwarded everywhere as a text message.
Oh yeah.
I forgot exactly क्या था, but it was something like Shabazz Sharif Temple Run खेल रहे हैं और वो Counter Strike खेल रहे हैं.
Yeah, and
कुछ इस type का political joke tha, and it was everywhere, and it was on WhatsApp, and मैंने किसी को भेजा, and they're like, ये मैंने पढ़ा हुआ है. I was like, man लिखा है.
Yeah, I know this. Yeah, I hate it. Yeah, I hate it when you do a joke and it would go. Yeah, that's the worst feeling on the planet when that kind of goes everywhere and you don't do it. But nowadays, things go literally. There's things going viral every single day.
Yes,
it would not happen back then. You'd have one thing going viral, and that was it for the month.
I mean, the way NFE makes Karachi sound like, I think the only things that were going viral during that time were STDs.
Really? I haven't. I saw that you did. I didn't see the podcast yet that you did with him.
But generally, you know, the NFE does this post like Pre-Zia Karachi.
Oh yes, yeah, the Pre-Zia Karachi.
Everybody's wearing what Abdullah's wearing right now.
Yeah,
like
basically. It was more than an experience.
Talking about STDs, BlackFish.
Yes, let's go back to the initial the initial virus.
Let's be honest, it does sound like, unlike Doc. What is this gonna be?
Oh my God, I've had
BlackFish.
Some BlackFish. You know, I've been on antibiotics for 2 months. You know,
it smells like raw tuna.
I know. It went to brown fish for a while, but then I ate something wrong, and now it's back to BlackFish. You know.
Orgy? No, Orca. So did the stand-up start first or did BlackFish start first?
BlackFish started first, yeah.
So आपको क्या हुआ? क्या चलिए मैं improv troupe करता.
Well, you know, I'd just gotten back to Pakistan, and this was post 9/11 time, and this was, you know, so it's so funny how history repeats itself.
Got away from that there as well.
Sorry?
You got away from there as well.
Away from?
Just in time.
Got away from. Oh yes, you see, you will be cancelled on your own podcast.
Have fun going to the US the next time when they hear this podcast. So what was he talking about?
Shahzad, be like,
sorry.
I used to work with the US consulate a lot, but then I
did this podcast.
Then I did this one podcast and this one joke. No, so I just gotten back, and basically everyone was so depressed, as is now, as is 100 times for the last 20 years. And I was like, okay, I want to do something which is fun. I want to do some comedy. I'd studied film. I thought I'd be a filmmaker. And I was like, okay, fine. I want to do something. I want to do comedy. I want it to be fun and everything like that. There was no writers. Nobody to write comedy. So you couldn't do a play. Anyone who's doing a comedy play was doing these very old British plays or these old American plays that had been done to death. And I was like, what do we do? What do we do that is actually going to kind of like trigger a response or actually talk about what people want to talk about? And for that, improv is perfect because the audience gives you the cue for what to talk about. So I started just looking for people. I was like, who wants to do improv comedy? Let's train. Let's do it. You know, and that's how it kind of went along. So I just found people person by person, put together a troupe. We trained for 6 months and then hit the stage. And that was it. That was BlackFish. And then just didn't have an agenda or anything like that. Just decided that, okay, fine, we're going to do shows once a week. Let's see how it goes. And just like that first SMS went viral. Everyone found out it was happening. And the first show was sold out. And we're like, okay, at the end of the first show, we announced the second show and we did the second show and just went from there.
And Park Towers?
No, this was in this place called The Basement in Zamzama. So there was this very
basement.
No, it wasn't Basement Cafe. It was another one. It was just called The Basement. And it was just this basement that you'd go into, it stopped being a performance space.
It's the same, that Cafe Basement, which is like the shadiest place in the city. Is that place?
It was there was another basement cafe, and then there was a cafe basement, and then there was an underground cafe. So this was The Basement, you know, so that was what it was called. Yeah, it was a very shady place. You know, I'm sure if you saw it, yeah.
I think
where the bathroom would overflow, and there was these kind of these two brothers had built it basically as a labor of love because they love music and they thought people were going to come and perform here. Yeah, and we found it and we were like, oh my God, this is perfect for comedy. And it was, except that had a fire broken out, we would have all died because it was a tiny place, you know, but it was Yeah, for comedy, it was just love at first sight.
I see why that place worked. I see why comedy worked there, because they had a BYOD policy.
BYOD? What's that? Oh, no, I mean, to be honest, nobody. I wish it was that cool. When we were doing our show, it was not that
Post
cool.
show, after show party.
No, well, yeah, maybe it was an after
the cafe
show.
basement I went to, I was like,
oh yeah, that was.
ये तो बहुत खुला scene है, mashallah.
We used to charge 100 rupees a ticket. You know, I think even a joint was more expensive. I don't think people were wasting their joints.
I was you, Sami.
Oh, so it's me, Sami, Ishma, Faris, Yasir, Cyrus, Umarana,
Sanam?
And Sanam Said. Yes, yeah, that was it. That was all of them all together. And yeah, it was just, I think people, you know, one or two came a bit later or went a bit later, and that was it. That was the troupe. And
कहाँ से मिले? Because this is like 8 great people.
To be honest, we had a lot of people come in, and I guess, you know, I just saw like how people were performing and everything, and how, you know, how basic their improv skills were if they wanted to learn, if they're interested in doing it, and that was it. So there were a few other people who tried out and who just, you know, didn't kind of end up doing it at the end of the day, but most of them just ended up having a flair for improv and doing it.
Because I think you've tried it with the agency, Faris tried it a few times. वो magic नहीं recreate हुआ.
So the agency and Shark, I think I did the agency, I did Shark. There were 2 improv troupes, and it did have the same fun and the same energy and everything like that. It just didn't have the same longevity. You know, it was just one of those things where it's hard to keep 8 people together doing comedy, doing their thing, and making sure that it's going to be fun every single time. It's very difficult to kind of keep that dynamic together. So the idea was, even with the agency start, to do one big tour and end, one big tour and end. So it was fun that way. We did it. It was fun, and then move on to the next thing.
And that's how Ali Gulpir started, no? That's one of those troops, no?
Well, Ali has been doing his own thing for forever. You know, like it's I don't know what Ali's first thing. I think me and Ali actually worked together first to doing improv, yeah. But then Ali also did his own stuff with he did his own improv with
Zishan. Zabist, no?
Not with Zabist, yeah. He was doing improv in Zabist and everything, but also he did a professional troupe with these people. You have to ask him.
तो कौन आएगा with Asfar?
Yes, yeah.
I think that was after.
No.
Was it before?
That might not be the one. Lipton Light on here. Yeah. That might have been his first,
yes,
but to be honest,
yes.
You should ask him. But that's where he started his improv stuff. Like, so he was doing improv kind of with those guys and doing that pretty regularly from the get go. And now he's part of the Lol Wale, so he, you know,
so one of the best people in Karachi. I love Ali Gulpir.
Yeah, of course.
I love Ali Gulpir.
He is definitely also one of the most funnest people to perform with. He's a fun, fast, interesting improviser who's just constantly kind of on his game. And it's, of course, the musical comedy is great too. But it's really fun to improvise with him. He listens really well. Listens, kind of goes with you and has fun. Yeah.
And then stand-up. How long would you say longevity? How long was BlackFish?
You know, I left BlackFish. They kept on going for a while, but I think it must have been at least 2-3 years that it went. So, you know.
And every week?
No, not every week, but a lot of the weeks, you know, every week, but like skipping a week, but a lot of the weeks it was done. And then, I mean, in the beginning, it was week by week for a while. And then people would come and go, and then there would be corporate shows and things. So it was pretty consistent.
I mean, even if you did like over 100 shows for an improv troupe in this city, that's phenomenal. Yeah,
and it was good times. There were fun shows, and you know, at that, everyone was just up for it. You know, live performance had started to really kind of take root, and everyone was just up for it. And then Park Towers had a little auditorium. It's gone now. The basement was there. It's gone now. Unfortunately, all these little interesting venues came and went.
All the people who went to the basement are gone now. I mean,
all the people who went to the basement are gone now. They saved their money because they only spent 100 rupees and bought plane tickets to Brussels. And they all live there now.
Cocaine is a hell of a drug. So
I mean, I think that they could have rolled up the 100 rupee note But they definitely weren't spent. I wish I'd made cocaine money. We just made improv troupe money.
So nothing. Roll खा लेते होंगे उसके बाद.
If you could probably count the money for literally one line outside our show, and it would probably cost more. One line of cocaine would cost you more than the money we made with the whole line of people entering the auditorium. That's how little money we made.
You know what the show after your show was called?
What?
Whose line is it anyway?
Whose line? So
stand-up कैसे शुरू हुआ?
Stand-up कैसे खत्म हुआ? अभी खत्म हुआ. After that joke.
आखिरी शो था. मैं आज साथ को बुलाया इसलिए था. I'm like यार ये क्यों नहीं कैंसिल हो रहे? ये क्यों नहीं हो रहे? हम होते जा रहे हैं. So with improv were you like यार stand-up भी try करते हैं?
Yeah, so I think that at the end of the day, there's people who do improv and do stand-up who do both. And there's people who kind of do improv and graduate towards doing and saying kind of, they just have more specific things to say culturally, specifically about themselves personally. And that's when you make the jump, because you can't force it in improv. You can't talk about yourself or add this about yourself. You got to go where the audience takes you. And that was wonderful, worked really well in that moment. And then I realized that, even the Karachi audiences, the Pakistan audiences are now graduating and maturing, and they started watching stand-up specials and things. And so they had more of an appetite for it. So I was like, okay, this is a good time to kind of be like, I have something to say, let's try it. So my first show was just like, I'd borrowed my friend's guitar amp and I had a mic. And I remember my sister's friends were in the garden at my house, and I was like, oh, this is a free audience. I'm going to try it. So I plugged in the mic and I did like 5 minutes, and they laughed. I was like, okay, it can work. It can work. Thank God. One of those alhamdulillah, it can work moments. So I was like, okay, if I can do this.
They really like me.
Yeah. So I was like, if I can do this for 5 minutes, I can do this for an hour. So I just got to writing. So I was like, let's just write this.
Has that formula ever worked somewhere else in life?
Just
if I can do this for 5 minutes.
If I can do this for 5 minutes, it might have worked in other things. Why? What are you insinuating?
Never for me.
What are you insinuating?
Running.
Huh? Oh, running, of course. If you can do it for 5 minutes, you can do it for the rest of your life. That might be difficult, but some people can only do it for 5 minutes.
Most people. Let's not judge. That's how I got BlackFish in the first place.
Are we doing STD jokes again?
Yes.
So we've done cocaine, we've done STDs, we've done sex
cocaine
jokes.
We did before the show. That's why we seem.
Really?
No.
Man, you
never.
You must really be getting the sponsors. If you're doing cocaine before this show, Telenor must have already paid you.
This show is brought to you by Coke Studio.
Co-sponsored by Telenor, Jazz, U4 and
अब तो कोई नहीं मिलेगा. अब तो जो आ भी रहे थे ना sponsors, like maybe not him. अकबर को phone मिला.
Yeah. See, when you talk about crossing that line, don't worry, sponsors, we did not talk about meth, okay? We did not cross that line, We snorted it.
मुझे पता भी था meth भी snort होता है.
I see, my drug knowledge is so bad. Like this, I'm 45. This is a drug for me right now. I'm like, oh, coffee, you bought it downstairs, more than 300 rupees.
Cheers.
We're rich.
So stand up. So then you just booked a show. So you did 5 minutes. And then you said मैं घंटा कर सकता हूँ, and then you booked a venue.
Yes.
ये confidence कहाँ से आ रहा है इतना?
No. I booked the auditorium and I shat my pants because I was like, now I paid back then the glorious sum of like 25,000 rupees. I shat my pants. It was a lot of money for somebody earning 100 rupees at a time.
Wow.
Okay, so I booked the auditorium and then I was like, nah, I gotta make this work. I gotta fill this place up. And so you just push yourself into it. And that's what I still tell young comedians these days if they're going to stand up. Like, if you think that you've hit that, you think you've hit that kind of pinnacle of I've done all the open mics and I've done all the things and I'm frustrated and I don't know where to go. And I'm like, go book an auditorium. You know, if you really want to kick yourself in the ass, then go book that auditorium. And when you've done that, when you've given that, when you know those people are coming, you will scramble and get it done.
I feel you already have the first line to your TED Talk. I started by earning 100 rupees a person on Zamzama.
Yeah, see, they pay you even less for TED Talks. They wouldn't even give you
nothing.
They pay you exactly. That's what I mean.
Nothing.
That's what I mean.
Which is more than what you get paid for comedy in Pakistan.
Yeah, that's true.
Because sometimes लोग पैसे ले लेते हैं आपसे.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. And even the era of TED Talks are done. Did you ever do a TED Talk? Okay, yeah. I never did a TED Talk. You know, people would ask, and I'd be like, do I really have something that intelligent? Like, is anyone really more intelligent than someone else to kind of tell them what to do with their life?
So ये मेरा problem था. ये मैंने जिंदगी में हर चीज नहीं की इसी वजह से. But now the way I see it is, who else is doing it in Pakistan? Then I look at them, I'm like, मैं भी कर सकता हूँ.
Yeah.
That's a much better way to do things in Pakistan.
That's right. Saad Haroon's Pakistan experience. I like this. You're right, Shahzad. Abdullah, if we gang up on him right now, we can kick him out, take over the studio.
Studio भी रख सकते हैं आप.
It's a Kabza group, like now Kabzaing podcasts. You know, we've gone from plots to podcasts.
I mean, Kabza is the Pakistan experience.
That is,
pretty
that's
much,
true. Yeah,
pretty much.
From plots to podcasts. Yeah, that's
हो गई ना TED Talk. Title भी मिल गया.
Yeah, oh, I love this.
Plotcast.
Yeah. Good evening, everybody. My name is Saad Haroon. Welcome to my TED Talk. It started way back in the day. It was a cold studio night. Shahzad was drinking his coffee. Abdullah was doing nothing. That didn't change.
I'm gonna let you go on to see where you give up.
You know,
commit to the bit, Saad. Go for it.
I know. Okay, fine. I really, you know, if I do commit to it, I'll keep going. You know, and then it'll be a 2-hour long podcast of me pretending to do a TED Talk. I swear to God, I'll do it. I'll do it.
I get it. I have the same impetus as a comedian. I'm like, laugh नहीं मिलेगा तो मैं तो नहीं रुकूंगा.
No, it's not about the laugh. It's also that I love that TED Talk format where you don't have to make them laugh. You know, if you just make them go, they love it. They're like, oh, that's it. Don't make them laugh.
So how did you feel after the show? Because मेरा भी same था. मैंने T2F पे किया और उधर भी यही था. I saw somebody do stand-up comedy and I'm like, ये कर सकता है तो इसने तो सिर्फ.
But isn't that the great thing when you watch someone and that's, I think that has been the best kind of, you know, experience of kind of doing comedy in Pakistan, to be like, oh, hey, you just did it. Good.
So I almost did it out of anger because I saw that show and literally what that person had done was taken some bits, and I was a huge fan of stand-up comedy.
Yeah.
Right? लोगों को जो लगता है कि मैं इतना corrupted हूँ, मैंने बचपन में Delirious देख लिया था. I was very young.
Yeah.
And I saw Delirious and I was like,
yeah.
What?
So there were very few, there were very few tapes of stand-up that were available in Pakistan, and most people saw stuff like Eddie Murphy and everything. That's where they started their stand-up in Pakistan. That's amazing that you did as well. There were very few that were just available. I remember when I was in school over here in St. Michael's, we'd give each other audio tapes.
Of?
And, you know, and they were of like Andrew Dice Clay.
Oh.
And then we'd be like, don't listen to it I would get my sister's tape deck and I'd put it on very low, and because there were no headphones, I'd listen to it. And laugh at
Dice Man.
Yeah, and just listen to these like incredibly dirty jokes, you know, and be like, oh my God. You know, this is crazy. And a lot of these stand-up specials that you see now, like Robin Williams and Dave Chappelle and everything, they were like audio back then. You didn't get the video for them. So I only saw the video for it years later, and I was like, oh my God, this is what it looked like. Because in my mind as a child, I was like, this looked like a different auditorium and different people doing these things. And you see him, ye ajeeb kapde pehen raha hai, ye ajeeb sa hall hai. And I was like, in my mind, it was completely different. So funny.
So, उसने क्या किया हुआ था? I think he had taken some bits, put it into Google Translate, and done them. And I was sitting in the audience, और मैं जिब्बी के साथ था, जबरान खालिक, I don't know if you met him, and literally हम दोनों एक दूसरे को देखते थे, ये उस स्पेशल से, ये उस स्पेशल से, ये उस स्पेशल से.
Yeah, there was a lot of that going on.
I got so angry, I was like, मैं कर रहा हूँ.
Yeah, there was a lot of that going on because nobody's gonna call you out, if you have those bits that other people are doing. But if you're a comedian, you know who's doing the bits, who's copying the bits. So you just do your own thing. So
I did the T2F मैंने किए. I think I did 15, and then वो I was like, अब तो मैं घंटा भी कर सकता हूँ.
Yeah.
And then I did 45, out of which maybe like 7-8 minutes was not that bad. Maybe half of it was funny.
Yeah,
but
you worked hard, I know.
You realize के मैं आपके पास भी आया था उसकी DVD लेकर. I was like, Saad, please give me some feedback. And Saad was like, just come over. And then I sat in Saad's
in my little office.
Very nice of you. So office मुझे I think dining room में बिठा दिया था.
Oh yes, dining room. I don't even remember.
And I was like, Saad, this is what I performed. And then you gave me some feedback. And then you were like, I have to go to the dentist. And I was like, thank you, Saad.
Yeah, so I have to go to the dentist now too. To be honest, yeah, that's pretty funny. But no, I hope it helped. I don't know if
it did.
Yeah, even now I'm actually. Next week I'm doing my first stand-up masterclass for Pakistan, like with like a bunch of students and everything like that. I've done it other places in the world, but now finally there's this young kind of group of people who actually want to learn the art of stand-up. I hope there's more because it's such a wonderful art form. I mean, I know we look crazy to you. We do look crazy, and we are, but the crazy is amazing.
That's the filter Abdullah puts on us.
That's the filter?
Yeah.
Okay.
These horns don't actually exist.
Ah, okay. Man, just Abdullah just gets all the crap in this. I can't wait to blame him for other stuff that hasn't happened yet.
He's actually the one who shat his pants when he booked PACC. It was him. It wasn't you.
I hired Abdullah to shit.
He'll probably get paid more doing that than I pay. Professional pant shitter.
Just hire Abdullah. I heard a Sagdar needs you, right?
मुझे याद है actually आपके advice, and in that moment I was like, ये तो कोई बात नहीं, बकवास कर. How old was I? This was 2010. So I was 21.
Okay, so every young comedian thinks they know everything.
No, I'll tell you what your advice was. So I was like, मैं ये करूँगा, फिर मैं ये करूँगा, फिर मैं ये करूँगा, and you were like, you're 21, just what's the hurry? And I was like, what does he mean? What's the you're like slow it down, like you have time. I was like, I have no time. And now when kids come to me, I'm like, what's the hurry? So I get what you were saying, but it just took me a few years to understand it.
Yeah, but I still do that because so many people, I mean, also just with their comedy, they just want to rush through it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you got to let people just tell the joke, just let them just tell your joke. Enjoy it. Enjoy the process of telling the joke. That's so many young comedians right now, so many young comics. I'm like, if you're up there and you've put in the hard work, also enjoy it. Enjoy being up there and this well-crafted thing that you've spent hours, months, years toiling over. Do it properly. Enjoy it.
अभी जब और लोग बोलते हैं ना stand up comedy में मसले हैं politics, I'm like literally 10 लोग थे, क्या politics होगी? Which is like, imagine if somebody starts acting and then they email Humayun Saeed and they're like, हमें मिलना है, Humayun Saeed घर आ जाओ. That was you. You were the stand-up comedian of Karachi and I'm a nobody. I've done one show and I'm like, Saad, give me advice. And you're like, मैं 15 minute dentist से पहले घर आ जाओ. So like, you're really nice to me. You're really nice to Akbar. So having somebody like you at the helm to look up to and get advice from. So I mean, thank you so much.
You're too kind, but I love the craft. Anybody honestly wants to talk comedy and wants to learn and wants to do better at it. It's just something like I eat it, breathe it, sleep it, live it. It's one of those things where I hope it flourishes over here. I think it's too late flourishing over here. It should have flourished much earlier. But because of our culture, because of the economic situation that we find ourselves in, because of these audiences that, really need to step up their game, they're just...
It's their fault. We're good.
Yeah, no. I mean, you got to call out performers, but performers have to call out their audiences and be like, your culture to shine, it's going to shine through artists. So you better support them. You better buy their tickets. You better, attend their shows, or else, why is there only one Pasuri, that everyone talks about? We have 220 million people in this country. There should be a lot more examples of that. It's because you find one thing and you back it. No, your brain is big enough to back many different things. Pasuri Abdullah, if you really put your mind to it, you can back him. There's a lot of things over here, a lot of talent in this country.
Is that a fudge brownie, or did you take what we were saying seriously? You see it, right?
I do. I see it. It's true. He is eating a fudge brownie.
Sometimes the comedy writes. At least recycling.
See, this is what happened when two comedians kind of talk, but it is fun. It should just be a lot more fun. And talking to a stand-up comedian, the problem is we get into the nitty-gritty. Like, we want to talk about the science of comedy and the art of it and how it fits together. And the audiences don't want to see that stuff. They don't want to see the time and the toil and the energy you've put into it. They're just like, they just want to see that perfect hour of that comedic ballet, and then they want to go home.
I think, don't you feel the art form's evolving a little? Do you watch Neil Brennan?
I do watch Neil. Yeah,
love Neil Brennan.
Yeah.
I love what Neil Brennan does.
Yeah, but he's been doing that for a long time, right? He was a writer on the Chappelle Show, and then he does that kind. Did you see that 3 mics thing he did?
That's what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
Have you seen Blocks? That's the latest.
I haven't seen the latest one.
Oh my god! So 3 mics, Blocks.
Yeah,
like that's what I want to do, and that's the show I'm writing now. Like,
so that's what I mean. Yeah, so that's a lot of fun, and I love that kind of comedy. That's also comedians. He's also like a comedian's comedian, right? Where you can really get lost in it, and it's a lot of fun kind of doing that. But then it's also you get more and more specific to an audience. A lot of times why comedians are not popular right now, and a lot of reason why a lot of other different sort of like, you can call it pseudo comedy. It's kind of like, kind of influencers or vloggers or something doing like little funny things that are not really funny, and they're not actually kind of talking about anything specifically except like a socio-cultural norm or something like that. Why? It's so digestible, right? You're kind of doing it for the lowest common denominator, and they are. I mean, unabashedly, they're like, this is what we're doing it. We're doing it to get views and likes and hits or whatever it is.
Which is its own genre. Like, for instance, I've discovered TikTok during COVID.
Yeah.
I love TikTok.
Yeah.
I love what they do. And it's like these small generic jokes, and everybody does them.
Well, it's not even jokes. It's just dances and things.
No, comedy bhi bahut funny hai.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a completely different world from stand-up comedy, because somebody will take a line and everybody will make a TikTok on the same line. So there's no idea of who came up with the copyright.
Yeah, and everyone kind of does a different thing.
Everyone does a spin on it. And then that world's also phenomenal.
Yeah.
That's not our world.
No, I mean, to be honest, I'd love to be part of that world, but I think that is cultural appropriation too. I mean, in this podcast, there's definitely like, there's, everyone knows who the burger is in this podcast. There's no...
Clearly, Saad's been watching our podcast.
I know. There's not going to be, there's no conflict about that
so
here.
आपने 5 मिनट स्टैंड अप कॉमेडी किया, फिर आपने PSCC बुक कर लिया 25,000 का, तो आप मिडिल क्लास तो नहीं हैं?
मैं तो डेफिनेटली मैं मिडिल के जो डीज होते हैं ना, वो मिडिल क्लास हूँ, तो मैं डिडल क्लास.
और आप US पहली दफा कब गए?
मैं अभी आया हूँ. मैं प्लेन से उतर के इधर आया.
US में तो मैं रहता हूँ. कराची में पहली दफा 9th ग्रेड में आया.
नहीं, मैं पहले छोटा बर्गर होता था. फिर मैंने जाके थोड़ा सा प्रैक्टिस के बाद मैंने डबल पैटी बड़ा बर्गर बन गया. No, this is going nowhere.
What were we talking about before?
This is going nowhere. I don't like burger comedy. It has one punchline and it's not fun anymore.
So this art form, Neil Brennan wala, I think Hassan Minhaj does something similar with Homecoming King.
Storytelling.
And it's deeply personal.
It's very deeply personal, yeah, but it has less punchline. So it just depends on if you like it or not. But if you can do that, That's amazing because there's an audience for everything. Like before, when social media first reared its head, it was all sketch comedy.
Yep.
That was it. Kit and caboodle. No stand-up, no nothing. It was sketch, skit. Now, you have, mashallah, 50,000 followers on YouTube for a 2-hour podcast, man. That's amazing.
And the 49,000 of those are my accounts.
Oh, really? Wow, that is amazing.
Dedication, commitment.
And I followed you 1,000 times.
That's it. That's all.
Wait a second. So it's just you.
These cameras aren't running. Do you see a red? Well, you do see a red light.
Oh, I do see a red light there. Yeah,
that's a sniper.
But now, thank God, there are bigger audiences. But it's also, we have a planet with 8 billion people. So even a niche market is now a market. It's no longer niche. You're catering to tens of thousands of people. So
but not to get hoity-toity about this, but do you feel like the art form is also allowing for things like this? For instance, Nanette. Maybe if I had seen that, have you seen Hannah Gatsby's Nanette?
Yes, I have.
Maybe if I had seen it maybe like a decade ago, I would have been like, this is not a stand-up comedy special.
Yeah.
But it was one of the most viewed stand-up comedy specials of a couple of years ago.
Yeah, but people even who viewed it as like, this is not a stand-up comedy special, this is different. Sorry about that.
Go for it.
Oh my God, so I think that you're right. The art form itself is evolving, but people who are purists will not see that as stand-up comedy. They'll see that as something else. People who see Hassan Minhaj's special will say it's not stand-up comedy, it's storytelling. I mean, call it what you want. As long as you're making like a good, solid piece of work that has humor in it, and you've understood how to use that vehicle of humor specifically to do something great. That's all that I need. And I know a lot of people out there, some of them might have seen these Nanette and these stand-up comedy specials. A lot of people might not have. But, a lot of people Nanette might have been the first stand-up special they ever saw. So their whole idea of what comedy and stand-up is going to be completely different. For me, I came from an improv background, so a lot of my shows is crowd work, because I love that, because I just can't give up that bit of my soul where I'm talking to an audience member and we're interacting like that, and that kind of beautiful part of storytelling and stand-up comes out. So it's always a mix of that for me.
That obviously, I think it's a spectrum, and everybody figures out where they fall in that. I think Pryor did a lot of personal storytelling himself. I mean, talked about almost dying multiple times in his stand-up comedy special, and obviously racism. So where I'm coming from is also, I think when I started, I got stuck in that formula as well, where like what Seinfeld also talks about, how many laughs you get. And I think in Talking Funny, Seinfeld says something like you need to laugh every 20 seconds. So you get stuck in storytelling or like performance formula, which, as I've seen a lot more, I think I've broken out of that, and I'm a lot more comfortable talking and not getting those laughs every 20 seconds. Yeah,
you're right. It does take a bit to break out of that format and say, okay, fine, I want to be a storytelling comedian now. But it's also fun to do that and not expect a laugh every 20 seconds. Be like, I'm going to tell a story and do that. Then it also depends on your audience, and if you've been, at the end of the day, people's attention spans have shrunk, so we don't grow up in Pakistan in a culture of a theatre going audience. So keeping their attention span for like an hour with a storytelling show, I think over here would be, keeping their attention span just for a stand-up show for an hour is difficult. For a storytelling show would be much more difficult. But had you grown up attending theatre in school, going to the theatre, going to these live performances and everything like that, your appetite for that is like a bit more. You're like, okay, I can do this now. I can do this. I can sit down. I can watch this. So it also depends on who you're catering to.
So you're saying I can't give a TED talk and get away with it by calling it a stand-up comedy special?
Oh, yeah. See, I would, if you want to be more broke than you already are, then you can't even charge for it. They'll be like, it's a TED talk. It's free. Oh my God, this Pakistan experience, man. Have you gotten sick recently? I'm sorry to all people out there, but I've been trying to kick this cough for weeks.
Man, nazar nahi lagana cha raha. Touch wood. This is probably one of...
This is not real wood. You're fucked.
Is it not?
No, I'm just kidding. It is.
Oh, you were touching the wrong thing. Sorry.
Man,
That you were touching the steel frame, na? Not the table. This
do you do these dirty jokes with other people as well, or is it just me?
Just you and Nabil Kapoor. so similar people, I think.
Not with NFP?
NFP मैंने ऐसे
I could imagine you doing the joke with him. He'd just stare you down.
I think उनको समझ नहीं आया मैंने किया था.
He'd take you back to the 70s.
He was talking about this thing and he was like, जुल्फिकार अली भुट्टो जो है ना वो 69 में बहुत मशहूर थे. मैंने कहा 69 में तो बहुत मशहूर थे. and like he just completely went over completely ignored what I was saying and he kept.
He's just like academia.
He's like हाँ 70 में भी थे. I said ठीक है. तो I think उनको hit नहीं हुआ. हाँ but मैं ये करता रहता हूँ इस तरह की छोटी छोटी मेरी बातें. But my touch wood. So this is the first.
Never mind.
You went there, not I. So this is the first winter where I haven't fallen sick in my life.
That's amazing.
And the one thing that I'm doing differently is cold showers.
What?
मजबूरी है, गैस नहीं आती, गीजर नहीं चल रहा. So I got used to like freezing cold showers. Like कल मैंने रात के कोई 2 बजे shower लिया.
Yeah.
Not gonna tell you why.
Why? Wait.
Because I just came back from set. तो वो studio के makeup और hair हुआ था.
Oh, you just came back from the set.
What did you think?
Like 2 in the morning, I thought, you know.
वो भी. Like Mustafa Chaudhry says, वैसे तो इस वजह से था, लेकिन जो आप सोच रहे हैं वो भी सही है.
He said that's funny.
I love that line.
Yeah, that's a funny line. That's a very funny line.
वैसे तो मतलब ये है, लेकिन जो आप सोच रहे हैं वो भी ठीक है.
Yeah. How is it like working with Murtaza Chaudhry, doing that stuff? He's such a natural comic.
The 50K celebration that you
I missed.
You ditched us
because I was sick.
You were sick.
Yes, I wasn't taking any cold showers. Wait, was Murtaza there for the cold shower? Never mind, yes, that's later.
Both of them. We call it the 4-man shower. Out of everything I've done, that's where I've made Saad laugh the most. सबसे juvenile joke जो था.
The visual of you with
that's what I thought. You were imagining it
with the long hair. In the cold shower.
So Murtaza bhai was here, and I had a few more coffee shots than I should have. And वो आए और वो बैठे और मैं शुरू हो गया. And I was like, you know, फला आदमी को हम कॉमेडी में समझते हैं, उनकी तो डैश 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 आप जो हैं. एंड मैंने उनकी इतनी तारीफें की.
सही है, करनी चाहिए.
But yeah, I think what Murtaza Chaudhry, Mustafa Chaudhry have done, they should be heralded as
no, but they're also artists. See, they are artists. They love the art form. That's why it's always fun to see them and fun to see the sketches they do. And when they do one sketch, it stands out more than anyone else's sketch because they are consummate professionals about what they do.
They're professional, they're intelligent, they're hilarious.
Yeah.
It's everything, right?
And they love comedy. It comes out. Like you see it when Akbar does it. He loves comedy. When they do it, they love comedy. You can see the people who don't actually like comedy do it, and you can tell, okay, they're just doing it for an audience. You can tell that. But these guys, you can see it.
It's the Chaudhry name.
It's the Chaudhry name.
It's the Chaudhry clan. आप मुस्तफा भाई से मिले?
Yes.
Mustafa is the long.
Yes. Of course, because when we started the Real News, the 4-man show was at the same time. So we'd always see them there. I wish we'd done something together. Now I look back and that's one regret, that I wish that we had done something with them. But when the Real News was on, we were doing our thing.
I'm getting it. I will make this happen.
No, it was just, we just thought we'd have
Abdullah, pani chalao.
Oh my God. Is this another shower? Yes. Is this like a rite of passage? So every comedian, do you shower with every guest?
That's how I get them to come on the podcast.
Come off the podcast.
So Mustafa bhai jo hai, Mustafa Chaudhry, I think he's the most pure comic I've met in my life, because even if you sit with him for chai, like all his brain works is, where's the joke and how can I go there?
Yeah, but I love that. I love people who think like that. I love people who dissect jokes and think about it and talk about it. And even anytime I meet him, it was always an interesting conversation because he was on the same mindset. He was in the same wavelength. He just loves comedy.
That's what Murtaza would, I think, that's which mera bhi problem hai, which I'm trying to learn. The thing I love about Mustafa is like he doesn't think about it.
Oh,
He'll just like say it in normal life, and he's not going to be all academic about it, which is a mistake I make. And so now I do the show on Express. Unhi ke saath shoot.
Yeah. So how is it working with them? Must be so much fun.
Oh my God! Like Mustafa Chaudhry, तो I feel like गली में statues होने चाहिए. मैं तो मतलब बहुत ही I mean personal TED talk बातें हो जाएंगी, but for years. One thing that was really bothering me was there was nothing that I was doing where I was learning anything, right? So if I was teaching or if I was doing my own shows, if I was doing this podcast, I'm doing everything for myself, but उस तरह से personal growth नहीं हो रही. That I can do in my own time if I'm watching, if I'm learning. In years, this is the first time where I worked with somebody, Mustafa Chaudhry साहब बैठ के, where I'm like, shit.
Oh,
like download.
That's wonderful, yeah.
Download.
That's wonderful.
So it's just like an honor and a privilege to sit next to him and just. I love that guy. I wish there was more of you guys out there doing this stuff. To be honest, it's just that we have a limited scope for the comedy that we do, and the people who want to do comedy, and also a lot of times there's an intrinsic fear that people have for doing difficult and difficult comedy and talking about difficult. You don't get the avenues to say it. There's nobody approaching you and be like, oh, do it, oh, get on the air. I mean, there's very few ways you can monetize difficult comedy as well. Yeah, and I think Talat Hussain was probably the one who saw Murtaza Chaudhry and was working with Murtaza and said, "चल show कर लो आज TV पर."
Okay.
इस तरह के बहुत कम लोग आपको मिलते हैं, and Murtaza and Mustafa have gotten into trouble for things they've said multiple times.
Yeah, but they pushed it, and that's their job.
That's so, but most people won't, right? Most people will get into trouble and will be happy being like, यार मैं पागल हूँ, मैं क्यों ये करूँ?
Yeah, that's their job. I mean, the thing is, for me, I don't do, I'm sure they don't do comedy to get in trouble. Trouble is a byproduct of things that they need to talk about using the vehicle of comedy, which is my problem, your problem, a lot of people who do stand up. But for a lot of people, they don't want to do that. They don't really want to kind of necessarily rock that boat or talk about those things, which is also fine.
But if those people exist, comedy is great. अगर आप sadomasochism में interested हैं, आप comedy करें. Because trouble will find you. Trouble will find you at all times.
No, it's also you're always in trouble. You're writing something, you're trying to get on stage, you're trying to perform in front of an audience. Comedy is trouble. It's Steve Martin who says comedy ain't pretty. You know what? I mean, you might look at it as this kind of glamorous thing. Comedy is the least pretty art form out there. It is a difficult, ugly thing you're trying to do well.
Have you seen Only Murders in the Building?
I've seen season 1. It's so good. How is season 2?
It's so good.
Okay, I gotta watch it too.
Because it's such lovely throwback comedy.
Yeah.
Like,
and they are also such great comedians.
I mean, at times I see the joke. I'm like, I know where Martin Short will go with this, but I still love him because it's Martin Short doing it.
Great.
And they work so well together. Like, I love them.
For me, Steve Martin was definitely, and that book, I mean, if you want to be a stand-up comedian, read Born Standing Up. That book on how he got into comedy was such an amazing book. Whose phone is buzzing?
Mira, sorry.
Oh, it's okay, fine. You were looking at it strange. I was like, is it my phone?
I looked at the time because मैंने notice भी नहीं किया कि 90 minutes हो गए हमें बात करते हुए.
Are you serious? Yes. It's been 90 minutes. Yes. Fantastic. Thank you, Abdullah. You've been so interesting. Shahzad, also you. Good job.
I try. मुझे smell से पता चलता है. Abdullah को यहाँ 90 minutes हो गए.
The dry impact wears off.
I'm sure कोई ना कोई comment करेगा कि
it's like wet impact.
Shahzad is an asshole. He bullies people who work. Abdullah doesn't work for me. He works with me.
Wait, you want me to comment that? Sure.
No,
Shahzad is an asshole who bullies people.
Just you, Saad.
If you want me, I could say it to you right now to your face.
आपने कैसे the real news शुरू किया?
Same way, I think somebody approached us and says, we're starting an English language channel. We want you to do a comedy show and we're ready to do it. And that's it. That's how it started. Khalid Surti, who you met, who works, he's been doing television for many decades now with Hum TV, and he approached us and said, I think it was him and his team. I'm not sure exactly who, but Emma Zuberi, who still kind of runs AAJ TV, they had belief in us doing this show and doing a comedy show, and we did it, and it just, I don't know why. It was luck. I wish we'd continued to do it, but then they kind of gave it to us, and I was so young. I was like, oh yay, I'm going to get 10 more TV shows. It doesn't work like that.
Who has that footage?
I have it. We still do it. AAJ TV must still have it. Play TV must still have that footage.
Are you sure? Because मैं Murtaza Mustafa भाई से पूछ रहा था, and they said हमें पता भी नहीं four-man show की footage कहाँ है.
Oh, so I took a lot of it when I was doing it, but it's who has the real actual footage of it? It must be in some.
But like rights किसके पास हैं? Because
me, I share the rights with them. So back then I was also very like college graduate of Beltide. We will own the universal rights for this content together and everything. And I mean, who cares at the end of the day?
Just put it up.
I do, but it's comedy, right? It gets dated. You know, we were talking about.
It'll work. Because Sarmad Khusat's now been uploading old episodes of Shashlik.
Yeah.
That's where people love it.
Yeah, that's true. We could do it. It does exist. I do have it on DVD.
There's quality like because there's some videos which is in like terrible quality.
Oh, it's terrible quality. It's very basic quality. But even for back then, I was like, this is amazing. It's on a DVD. Look at this. This is amazing.
अच्छे shows आ रहे थे. Four-man show था, आपका show था, and I think वो Fussy and NFV and Mohsin's were Views and Confused.
Views and Confused.
That was a great show.
It was great. So we were all doing comedy shows on ours. They were all doing good. It was good. Those were the golden times of comedy.
That's why people shot at you guys.
Exactly. No, did anyone shoot at us? Nobody shot at us.
AAJ TV par.
Oh yeah, they shot at the building. I mean,
Saad's like, not at me, listen, just the place I work at.
No, I tell everyone. No, they were. It was Guru Mandir. It still is Guru Mandir.
No, they shot at AAJ specifically, targeting AAJ.
Okay, fine, yeah.
Because Talat Hussain, they were shooting at Guru Mandir, then Talat Hussain made a video.
Yeah.
And wo AAJ pe chala diye, and they're like, acha.
Okay, fine. I mean, to be honest, it had nothing to do with us. We probably were not there for that day or that week or that month. But so we had nothing to do with it.
Because you were outside shooting.
We were outside shooting. Oh, poor guy, man. No. The burgers unite. Where is this place? It's Guru Mandir.
Saad outside. Ye laser tag nahi hai.
This is my visa for Guru Mandir. Can you please let me in?
How did it end, the real news? Bas for renew
No, they did. I mean, I started traveling and performing more. So I was like, okay, we'll come back and we'll do the next season, and it just never happened.
Oh, my poor summer child.
Yeah, never happened. Because I was like, no, we've done this, and I was like going to the US and performing more and doing shows, which thankfully I still do. So it's a revenue stream, and I was like, I'll just come back and do it. And by the time I got back, things had changed. The media, like, people were doing different types of shows. People weren't investing. Back then, you were getting sponsors. Things on TV were making money. And it just all changed one day.
And I think
so niche shows like an English language comedy show on TV, we did have an audience. I still meet people today who are like, oh, we like that show. I watched it. Yeah, so it was fun. It was good. We would have gotten better, but
Do I remember it incorrectly, or did you wear glasses to make it seem like you were a newscaster?
No. I still have glasses. I still have glasses. I just don't need to read a teleprompter right now.
Aapse hum ek, what's the truth test called? Where we'll make you do that. Wo prank video fake thi na? It looked so fake. Somebody pranked you for the real.
No, it was real.
Was it?
It was real, yeah. It was real. They pranked us. But the channel people pranked us. So I was like, you guys are the ones making the TV show. Why are you pranking us?
Because it was for some other show.
It was for some other show on the network. I forget, but it was for some other prank show.
So fake. I was like, bakwas.
Yeah, we were so annoyed because I was like, we're trying to shoot an episode of the show for your channel, and you decided to shoot another episode of that.
That's why it looked fake, because you were being still nice. Like, I mean, they were angering you and you were still like, like you were nice about it.
Yeah, but also, like, we live in a media culture where everything fucks up all the time. So when it was fucking up, they're like, it's a prank video. I'm like, no, this is real life. How could this be a prank when this happens on a day-to-day basis? So that was it.
So the decision to move to the US was financial?
No. I wanted to do more comedy. So I wanted to do more comedy. I wanted to do it in English, and I realized that I can do it over there. I can, it's a different, for me, I do comedy bilingually, but majority of it is in English. And that was because I love traveling. I love performing. I love doing comedy, not just for American audiences, for whoever will see me, wherever pays the bills. And that has wonderfully worked out okay so far. Yes, of course, I want it to be exponential, but so far so good.
Polygraph test.
Polygraph test.
That's what it's called.
Yes, that's what it's called. You're right. You're right. That's it.
Sorry, it was bothering me. You can always tell your story later.
Yeah, I know.
Polygraph test. That's what. Since हमने polygraph लगाया हुआ है आप पर already. Khalid Malik came on the podcast and he said, I had no idea I was quitting 89 and joining 91. Do you believe him?
What? I didn't know that. Now I do need you don't need a polygraph for that. You can tell. I was like, what? But so we're talking about the radio now. Man, you jump around.
Aapne bola you've lost your train of thought.
Go take a cold shower and come back, okay?
Murtaza bhai aa jaye.
So 2.5 man show.
अच्छा था.
There we go.
अच्छा था. US.
Yes. Okay. No. Yeah. So we're done with that story. I went there. I wanted to move there, and I still go. I still do comedy. I'm going next month to do more shows. And COVID messed that up a bit, but hopefully I'll be doing more shows wherever I get hired to do more shows.
Do you believe Khalid when he says he had no idea he was joining 91?
I believe Khalid? I do believe Khalid. I guess he had no idea he was good. Yeah. To be honest, so I was plonked down to do that radio show in the middle of the entire thing. They were like, Saad, you're taking this show. So obviously Khalid, who it was his show, had been doing it 4 years. And to be honest, you do a show for like 10 years or more or whatever that was. You grow up listening to that one person. That was his show. Yeah. So I came in as basically the stopgap, I think, to be like, somebody else needs to do the show and you can do it without completely fucking it up. Or something, yeah.
What do they say? You never follow the guy. You follow the guy who follows the guy.
Yeah. So I mean, I knew it was an unwinnable situation. Khalid is still a master of radio, has the voice, has everything. I do not have a radio voice. Even with this cough, I didn't have the personality to be like, hello, how you do? I didn't have that, I never did. So I was like, this is my family. I'm going to talk to them. I'm going to play some great music. I'm going to have fun with these guys. And that's exactly what I did. And some people like that. Some people didn't. And that was it,
How long did you do that? I thought you did it for a while.
3 years, yeah. 3 years. No, in radio terms, it's literally not. It's literally not even a microcosm of a second, because people have to listen to your voice, like you, grow up with you for at least, I would say, 5 to 7 years before it's your show. 3 years is nothing.
Who succeeded you?
Anusha. Who's still doing the show?
She's still doing the morning show.
Anusha is still doing the morning show. She's still doing it very successfully, happily doing it, and she's on air, and she has a different style. And thankfully, she didn't change her thing. She's like, this is my style. This is how I do it. This is how she does it. And she gets it.
She's great at that hosting stuff.
I mean, she's a natural. Yeah, she's basically a very, very kind of affable, likable, good, fun person who can just basically you can plug her. You can plug her into anywhere and it would work.
How was it waking up in the morning as a comedian?
Oh my God. So waking up in the morning was difficult at first, but it was very cathartic because you're waking up very, very early in the morning. And I also love music. So I was getting to the studio. I didn't have to. I was getting to the studio like an hour early to put together my playlist, to be like, okay, this is what music people want to listen to at this time, at this certain way, and this is what I want to talk about today, and this is how I want to talk about it. So I really kind of put a lot of work and effort and blood, sweat, and tears into that show. And so waking up in the morning became like a ritual, like, okay, fine, it's my job to make these people happy today. and not comedically happy. Just make sure that they turn on the radio, they hear the right music, they have fun listening, and that was it.
I thought you'll be like, it was so cathartic to get a paycheck every month.
Yeah, that too. Yeah, getting a paycheck for sure. But like juggling the stand-up and everything, and that juggling the late nights and the thing. And also it was a very difficult time in my life as well, you know, kind of doing the radio show at that time, because my mom was also sick at that time. So it was a very strange time for me. But also that radio show kind of pushed me into being a positive person, to be like, okay, fine, all these other people are also having a shitty day right now, so you got to get up, they're going to work, you got to go to work as well, and just find what's nice about this whole fucked up mess, you know. So that's what I did.
Have you figured out the post-show cool down?
The post-show cool down?
Like once you're done with the show, are you
a stand-up show?
Yeah, stand-up show. Are you still wired and you're going home?
Oh, still wired. Oh man, good question. You know, essentially,
come on, man. Essentially, what he's saying is that was the first good question. That's how I heard it.
No. I was just being a radio show host. Very good question.
Very good question. Sabah ne bheja hai hame Nazmabad se.
Exactly. You know, and as you can see, ladies and gentlemen, for my TED Talk, you know, we can see that Shahzad Bhai, as he is known now, Shahzad Bhai, is asking good questions. But what is a good question? You know, what actually entails a good question? Is he good? Is there intrinsically good, or is the question good?
That sounds like if Zakir Naik went to KGS. That's a very good question, sister.
Zakir Naik went to KGS. That's a very wow. That's an amazing thing. I think from all the things you would have got cancelled of, apart from the cocaine and apart from anything else, I think you're going to get cancelled for that one thing. It's amazing. Wow.
It's like
comedians really push the boundaries.
It's like playing a game of roulette every time I do a podcast. Isme ab kisme cancel honga?
This is yeah, exactly. You are just take my mic. You're too good here. Here, just take.
So the post show Wired. That's a very good question. You know, when I came back from the US, when I graduated from Boston, I was still wired on.
You went to the US?
No, you did.
You're so cool.
You did.
I didn't graduate from Boston.
Boston में नहीं आपने पढ़ा था Massachusetts.
Yes, in Massachusetts.
ठीक है ना? That's like saying Sindh and Karachi.
Sir, I met you in New York, where you were studying theatre in New York.
I think Panera Bread मिले थे हम लोग.
Panera Bread, where all the rich comedians meet. Yes, you were studying theatre in New York.
I was.
And doing your thing, and doing stand-up and
even shot a
theatre.
Documentary on Saad Haroon.
And then you lost your passport.
I did lose my passport. ये मेरी strategy थी कि मैं वहाँ रुक जाऊँ. They tried deporting me, and I'm like, I don't have my passport. They're like, we can still send you back.
I know.
Like, I found it.
You're supposed to rip it up, not lose it.
The things you've not taught me about comedy. Wired. How do you get rid of the wiring?
How do I get rid of the wiring? This is very good question. Back to your amazing question. Yes. So there are two things that can happen. Either you have a bad show, of course, which you felt, in which you
of course you felt. Thank you for the of course. Thank you so much. If you have a bad show, of course, that's what you felt. And if you have a good show, that I'll tell you about, because you've never felt that.
So Shahzad Bhai. Sorry about that, Shahzad Bhai.
Ji sir, ji.
Okay, you don't mind if I call you Bhai, do you?
Not in that accent.
Okay, good. But anyway, so you have a bad show, you go, you cry about it, as I have many times. And then you wake up and you're like, I gotta fix this and do this. So after the show, you're depressed. So you're not, so you're rethinking through every moment of that show, every joke you could have fixed, everything you could have done.
Then, I mean, life.
Basically, why did I do this?
6th grade में अगर मैं ये नहीं करता तो आज show बुरा है.
Or why did I become a comedian? Or can I still? Then you open Indeed.com for a bit. You surf through the job listings.
Yes.
Then you close that. You're like, okay, I'm still a comedian. It's okay. I'm still a comedian. I'll do this. And then you want to get back on stage. After a good show, when you're wired and everything goes well, you're always constantly kind of. It's just such a adrenaline rush, right? I don't think there's any way out of it. I think you've just got to, you got to go through the show, you got to feel it, and to be honest, you got to not get up in the morning and go to a day job. You've got to be like, okay, I did my job, it finished at 10 o'clock at night, I was wired till 5 in the morning. Even in a good show, I'm like, damn, I could have done that joke, damn, I could have done that joke. Even with the best show, there are things you could fix, right? So you're doing like a post-show synopsis, a post-show kind of whole thing. So,
but are you happy till 5 a.m. in the afterglow? Because I feel like post maybe like 1, 2 a.m. the happiness fades, and the higher you went, you sort of bounce back to a low to come back to normal.
Yeah, you do. So you do have the highs of, I mean, reaching that kind of high where you've kind of made a room full of people laugh is such a wonderful feeling. You're right. So that when you start coming down, you start thinking about the next show, right? You're like, okay, I can do this and I can do this next show. Or you're emotionally exhausted and everything's gone. The happiness is gone. The euphoria is gone. The adrenaline is gone. It's a very alone. You're just so alone in that moment. You're like, oh my God, that's why I do like it a lot of the times where you go hang out after a show, because they're friends or there's, you're doing something. So it's not just this complete wipeout, from everything to nothing. It's very difficult to do that. So but no matter, even then, even when you're with people, you feel very alone after a show, because you're like, okay, because it's not like a battle or something, or you take a throne, or you've done your job, everyone's laughed, everyone's clapped, and it's done. There's no takeaway from it. Maybe there's a video now that you've shot or something, but there's very little you can take away.
It's still it's a hit. Like, it's a dopamine hit.
It is.
And you've flushed out all that dopamine.
Yeah, you flushed it all out, and you can, and you're also, you don't have the energy to do anything else. It's not like you can be like, oh, let me go to the gym now. You are so emotionally exhausted. You are physically exhausted. You're maxed out on caffeine. You've maxed out on your dopamine. Yeah, that is it. It's definitely such a hard part of the job. I didn't want to think. Thank you, Shahzad.
I'm sure people,
now I'm thinking about all that kind of.
I'm sure people who do harder jobs than us are laughing at us, but I don't think people who don't do stand-up comedy realize कि वो adrenaline hit आता है, तो on stage you can go on for 75 minutes.
Yeah.
But then it almost feels like you've worked out, or you've gone to the gym.
No, you do, yeah. And then you get off, and then if you're talking to people after the show, it's literally you have like another like 30 conversations in a span of an hour, and then there's nothing.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh my God, what just happened? It's also that, like you go from this moment of adoration where everyone's like just looking at you, just listening to you. You're talking about things that you've poured your heart into and your writing and your art into, to what's on Netflix? Oh, here's another documentary on Xanax. Like, just.
Yeah. And it's also like, for instance, maybe अगर आप न्यूयॉर्क में हैं तो आप कॉमिक्स के साथ ही बैठ जाएंगे, तो सब आपके साथ ही हैं. Like, you get done at 10 p.m., 10:30 p.m. By the time you get home, it's 11:30. Who are you like, at least for me, who am I texting at midnight to be like, you wanna hang out?
Well, not here. Yeah. If you text that to somebody over here, they'll text you back being like, my brother's coming to hang out with you. That's what they're going to text you back.
Before भाई आ जाएं, लोगों ने भी बहुत ज़्यादा सवाल पूछे थे. So let's
wait. People ask questions.
Yes. People asked a bunch of questions. So let's quickly run through these.
Man, I wish I could. Even doing a podcast, you have to cough your way through it. Crazy.
हम हटा देंगे, हम censor कर देंगे.
Oh my God.
The story behind the Conan sketch.
The story behind the Conan sketch. Oh, that's a good question. I had this, I was always a big fan of Conan O'Brien, and I had this idea in my mind that, of something that could be really funny, and it just stayed with me. So it stayed with me till one day I got our mutual friend Nabhan, and I was like, I really want to film this. Can we do it? And I convinced him to do it. He thought it would be funny and interesting to do. And also he's like an artist for filmmaking. So he said, I'll do it with you. And so I shot it. I didn't know whether they'd want it or like it or whatever, but I shot it. And then I went back to New York, and I got in touch with a friend of mine, and I said that, listen, do you know anyone who works at Conan? Can I send this to them? And he said he found someone, and I sent this to them, and they showed it to Conan, and Conan liked it so much, they cut one of their things from that show, and they showed it the exact same day I sent it in. They're like, this is too good to give up. So they did it and they put it there, and they also put it in the promo reel of the Conan show. So it ran for years. Just, Akbar and everyone dancing.
Wow.
Yeah, it just ran for years. And yeah, it was just one of those things where, like I said, sometimes comedically you like you figure out just what works. I was like, this is going to be good. This is going to work. I know it, and I've had one or two times, maybe a few more, that I've had that kind of thing in me that this will work. And I did it and it worked. Yeah.
When I think about it retrospectively now, Conan's probably the reason I do comedy. That's the first time where I was like, wait, you can be silly?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I love Conan so much.
Yeah.
Like, imagine being a kid in Pakistan, in a society like Pakistan, where school mein aapko kuch bolne nahi diya jata.
And I love his love of comedy. You could see it. Yeah.
And it's silly, right? Like, I don't think we let our kids be silly in Pakistan. So imagine living in Pakistan where all these rules, and you put on PTV, or log headscarf mein news suna rahe hain, or tractor chal raha hai, then you put on NBC, and then somebody's telling a monologue, then a masturbating bear comes, and then there's a horny manatee, and you're like, ye kaise ho raha hai?
Yeah.
Like, how does this world exist?
Yeah, and those were in those days of cable. It was on one of those channels, right? You get cable. We used to get all those channels, and one of them had Conan on it, and I was like, this is just amazing. It's just fantastic that it would just show up. It just showed up one day.
Yeah, and people loved Leno, and I was like, what are you talking about? Conan is... I love Conan. I guess my first...
I guess, to be honest, it was just one of the first ones that I saw. Maybe if I'd seen one of the other ones more, it would have been fine, but whatever. It was just silly, and it was fun, and it was funnier.
I've seen all of them now. I still think Conan's the best.
He's amazing. Yeah, I of course I love him.
I mean, I'm sure the Letterman generation feels that about Letterman.
No, those guys are all really funny and everything, but there's just something about him.
Conan's the silliest, I think.
He's the silliest. He seems to be having the most fun. Yes. I don't know. And he also just takes himself the least seriously. I mean, there's just this fuddy-duddy thing that kind of is just all over our culture that I hate, and is good. Anyone who breaks that is fine with me. It's fine in my books.
Everything about that show. It's Conan, Max Weinberg, Max Weinberg 7.
Yeah, I remember that.
The creepy announcer.
Yeah, it was all funny.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I can't, to be honest, I can't remember most of it now.
I'm sure you remember the Triumph sketches.
Oh, of course. Those I remember all of them. Those are still good. Yeah.
Hilarious. People who have not seen Triumph the Insult Dog, do yourself a favor. पूरी podcast सुन लें. 5 मिनट खत्म हो रही है. उसके बाद ऑन बिन नेहान कह रहे हैं, I love him. काश साद हारून मेरे वालिद होते.
Oh wow. Damn. People say, who's your daddy? I'll say, who's your son? I'll be like, that guy.
On bin
Nehan. Yeah.
Yeah, how does one know they are a comedian? Are comedians also funny off stage, or is it just a hat they wear to do the job?
Good question. I think that intrinsically, I think when if you're funny or you're not funny. Whether you decide to be a comedian is another question altogether. And some comedians never take off the hat. They love being funny off stage and on stage. And some comedians, they put it on stage and they take it off because it's not that they don't like comedy off stage. It's because they know specifically they're doing a job. But, with their own friends, they'll be funny.
Yeah, I think more and more I've started feeling like the guy on stage is a character. And I do differentiate.
Oh no, I just feel that it's not my job to entertain when I'm off stage. It's your job to be a human and have it to be an interaction rather than you kind of doing a monologue. And that's what I feel, that a lot of times people want comedians to be kind of performing and that person on stage, and you're like, no, it's much more natural to have this be a natural conversation.
Why don't you revive the real news on YouTube? Danish Ali's portrayal of Steve Irwin was amazing. I think the real news would thrive on YouTube.
Thank you so much. Yeah, a lot of people have said, can you do it? Can you redo the real news? And I think that what the real news was at that time, doing that kind of comedy, the two people, and Mikhail as well, and the kind of people we were back then, it would be kind of hard to revive it, and it wouldn't be the same thing. I think that I would do some kind of satire, some kind of news, some kind of different comedy, but it wouldn't be the real news. But hopefully it would be better in some way.
If you want a studio,
Oh yeah, you guys do have a wonderful studio.
नहीं मैं serious हूँ अगर आपने करना है we can for sure do it.
That would be a lot of fun. I would love to do it, but the thing is, people would be expecting you to capture that kind of real news thing and everything.
Let's just do weekend update.
Weekend update.
Let's just like every week do like 5 headlines.
That would be fun.
Just put them up.
Yeah,
let's see
that would be
goes.
fun. Yeah,
or like 5 jokes a week. That's it.
I'll add it to my list of social media content I have not made.
You just write 5 headlines. I'll write 5 headlines, and every Saturday or Friday we come in, we shoot, we record, and we put them up every week.
You make it sound so easy.
Is it not?
No, you're easy.
So she told you.
I don't know. See that joke didn't work. The headlines will not work.
Saad, let them decide.
You know, the real news took a lot of time and a lot of writing and a lot of effort. I think that, you know, we also had a backing of a TV studio, which made it happen.
So do we not do it if we don't have all of that? Don't let your mind procrastinate. Yeah. I think perfection nahi aati. Like even with this podcast, a lot of times people are like, how do we start a podcast? And I'm like, start it. And they're like, thank you for the shittiest advice we've received in our lives. But any person who says, stand-up comedy kaise karu? I'm like, kar lo.
Yeah.
And they're like, इसीलिए तो तुझसे पूछा था.
Yeah. But if you want to do stand-up comedy, you can come to my workshop. When does this air?
When does
the podcast air?
आपकी workshop कब है?
It starts 1st, 2nd, 3rd Feb.
हो जाएगी. उससे पहले आ जाएगी. We can put this up before the other one. ठीक है.
Okay, yeah. So if you've listened past the 2 hours, now you can know when to take a stand-up comedy workshop, which I'm doing with The Jungle, or just come to my social media sites of Instagram and Facebook, and I just get so bored saying these things. Saad Haroon, yes, on Instagram, or just Saad Haroon. Find me and you'll figure out where the workshop's happening.
Or The Jungle PK. Yes. They also do open
But it's a stand-up comedy masterclass, 3 days. So, but I've never done it here before. I'm not sure what exactly is going to happen, but we'll try.
अगर आप open mics भी करना चाहते हैं, The Jungle does an open mic every Friday, so get in touch with them.
Yeah.
Just perform.
Have you done any of those open mics with them?
Great, phenomenal. Okay, cool. Like this is just God sent, right? कि मतलब Friday को मैं किसी को बोल सकता हूँ कि मुझे 5 मिनट करने हैं, 10 मिनट करने हैं, and I can go and do it. Wait, what?
Yeah.
What should I pay somebody for this? How is this happening?
I know.
Let's end it with this. He's the cutest stand-up comedians of all times. Kindly ask him why doesn't he act in films or dramas. Please don't ask this question that if he does. There are like 6 Hum TV dramas that starring Saad right now.
Wow. I wish it was this Saad. It's the Saad bin handsome and Saad bin something else, but there's no Saad.
Shit, did we call the wrong guy?
Yeah, I think you. Sorry, we can. Should I go now?
Yeah, well, please, memory cards delete.
Wow, 2 hours, man.
अच्छा क्यों नहीं कर रहे acting?
So I in retrospect maybe I could have gone and done acting and everything, but I was so focused on comedy. You know, I was just so focused on doing comedy, and ideally something like The Real News would have come along again, but then the radio came along and I traveled and I performed. But now I think I'm working towards like more of like a stand-up special, like something that is like a work in itself. You know, everybody, you know, painters do paintings, but comedians do specials, you know, that 1 hour that defines them. And I've been trying to figure out how, as a Pakistani comedian, to do that for an international audience. And it's been a very difficult question to answer, but hopefully I'll answer it now. I think I've gotten my brain took 20 years. That's just 20 years. That's it. Nothing special about this special.
That's a microcosm in terms of the radio.
Yeah, it's a microcosm. It's like a blip. It's like, no, it's taken me a long time, but hopefully I'll do it. And I'm a late bloomer. But, you know, so be it. That's my... We
are going to wish you well and wait for you to bloom. Thank you so much, Saad, for your time. Despite being sick, you showed up and you did the job.
Yeah, I'm sorry for coughing and sneezing and sniffling onto this thing. I'm not contagious, but, you know, man, like, what can you do living in Pakistan? I mean, you just gonna catch something or the other. I'm glad I caught you.
Sorry about giving you BlackFish. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening, and thank you, Saad, for coming on the podcast. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.